Welcome to this next part of the Aposphere Insight video tutorial series. Today, we are going to discover together how you can connect your strategic planning to the monitoring data in order to evaluate the performance of your project. As you know, the best strategic planning is worthless if there is no link to reality. This operational feedback cycle is ensured through the use of monitoring data to track the performance of your framework's results. In order to get a meaningful picture, it is important to select the right data to support your decisions. Aposphere Insight facilitates this data selection process in its dataset management tool, the DataHub. The DataHub is a collection of relevant datasets for the context you are working in. On Aposphere Insight, the DataHub is available organization-wide or in the context of individual projects. To open the organization-wide DataHub, simply click on the DataHub button in the left sidebar. To open the DataHub of a project, select a project. Then, in the project overview, select the DataHub tab. Let us have a look at how this works conceptually. What we typically see is a large number of datasets from different data sources which by default are not compatible. In Aposphere Insight, we distinguish three data sources: Aposphere services such as DataMaker and Tracker, where you can make your own data right on this platform; external services such as OneDrive, Dropbox, and Google Drive; and publicly available open databases such as from the World Bank, the United Nations, or Our World in Data. Our DataHub provides a central collection for those datasets, and you can add any dataset to it by the push of a button, as we will see later on. In the DataHub, you can manage and validate the collection of relevant datasets for your various projects or for the whole organization. Now you will want to bring this curated data as decision basis and feedback information into your strategic planning. This is what indicators are for. An indicator is always linked to a single dataset. You can set performance evaluation success criteria such as base and target or a hold value for each indicator. This allows to calculate the performance of the indicator. The performance is then aggregated from the indicators to an aim, from the aims to a box, and so on. Now let us see how we can add a dataset to the DataHub. We will do this in the context of the whole organization, but as explained previously, you can do the same for individual projects. To add your first dataset to the DataHub, click the Add button. Here, you see a list of all the available datasets from the different data sources. As we have not added our own datasets yet, for now we see only publicly available open datasets. There are different ways to find the best suited datasets. If you have a topic in mind, you can search for keywords using the text search. Enter a term and click Go or press Enter to start the search. You can sort the found datasets by popularity, meaning how often they are being linked from indicators, or by the latest data update. You can also sort alphabetically or by the number of available data points. If you want to find a dataset from a specific data source, you can expand the filters using the Dedicated button. Here, you can toggle the individual data sources. For example, if you want to see only the public datasets provided by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or short UNSDG, deselect all others and then select the UNSDG as data source. The search results will automatically refresh. If you are looking for a dataset that covers the date range of your project or activity, you may want to use the date constraints to only show datasets which have their first entry before a certain date, or their last entry after a certain date. If you want to see only datasets you or your organization have edited, you can do so by using the switches on the top. Now let us add the first dataset to the DataHub of our organization. To do so, use the Select button of the dataset. Repeat this to add a few datasets to the DataHub. Now, what information do you see for each dataset? Of course, you see the title. You also see the data source. Here, you see to how many indicators the dataset is linked and how many data points it contains. We also show when the data was last edited and what is the date range of the entries in the dataset. Click on the Info button to show more information such as a detailed description, a link to the data source, associated keywords, and the available scopes. So far, we have seen how to add a publicly available dataset. Those are in the list by default. However, you can also upload or import your own datasets. Let us now see how you can import a dataset you have in a cloud storage such as OneDrive, Google Drive, or Dropbox. For this example, I will use an Excel file on my OneDrive. As you see, the first column contains the measurements dates. There is data from different areas which is stored in the second column. Then, there are observations from 4 different species. For one of the species, there is even an uncertainty information on the measurements. Furthermore, there is a column containing comments. Note that the scope, uncertainty, and comment columns are optional. However, you may find it useful to pipe this additional information into your strategic diagrams as well. Finally, my Excel file has a second sheet with similar data. To import this dataset into the Aposphere universe, click on the New Dataset button in the header. Here, you see all the currently supported data sources from which datasets can be imported. Since our file is on OneDrive, let us go with that. Next, you need to sign in and allow the access to OneDrive. Once your OneDrive is connected, you can select the file using the Pick button. Select the Excel file in your folder structure and click Import. We have successfully imported the file and are now ready to configure it. First, you can choose whether the dataset should be visible to and usable by everyone, or whether only you should have access to it. Then, you must configure a series from your data, which basically means mapping the columns from the Excel file to their usage in Aposphere Insight. You see the two sheets in the Excel file represented here again. To set up a series from the first sheet, click Add Series. Now, we have to select which columns shall be used for what purpose. The original data is shown on the bottom as a reference. Give the series a name. Then, select which column shall be used as time axis. Here, it is the date column. Select the value column to be used for the values and proceed the same way for the uncertainty, the scope, and the comments. If you would like to apply an advanced filtering to your series, you can do so in the Filter section. We will, however, not go into detail on that in this video. Once you are done, click Save. You see that the series we have just defined is now listed within the first sheet. Proceed similarly to add a series for the second sheet. You can of course also add multiple series from the same sheet, allowing to fully adapt to the data structure your organization is using. Click on the back arrow on the top left to go back to the overview of the integration. If you want to import a second file, you can do so by clicking on the green Import Dataset button. Now let us go back to the DataHub and add the newly imported dataset. Click again on the Browse button and search for the file name of the imported file. Use the Select button to add the dataset to your DataHub. We have now seen how to import a dataset from OneDrive. You can proceed the same way for other external services such as Google Drive, Dropbox, Smartsheet, or Airtable. Now we know how to add datasets from external services and from open databases. You can, however, also create your own dataset right in place. To do so, we have developed the DataMaker module where you can manage and edit your own datasets. To create a new dataset in DataMaker, click New Dataset and then Create Dataset in DataMaker. Give your dataset a name. Click Create to start adding entries. Instead, you can also start from an offline file using the Create and Upload Data button. We will click Create and input the data later on. Here you see the data table, which is of course still empty since we just created the dataset. Click on Add Entry and proceed to fill out the fields for your first data point. Once you are done, click Add Next Entry to enter another data point or click Submit to save and go back to the overview. You can also import entries from an offline file by downloading a template, filling it out, and uploading it again. There will be another video of this tutorial series covering the DataMaker module in more detail, so for now, let us go back to the DataHub. Clicking on Browse, you see that the new dataset appears in the search results. Click Select to add it to the DataHub. Another way to bring data into your strategic framework is to set up surveys. This is particularly useful if you want to capture recurring data from different people. Similarly to the DataMaker, there will be a separate video explaining how to work with the SurveyMaker module. Once you set up a survey, it will also become available as dataset to add to the DataHub. In the first part of this video, we have seen how to add datasets to the DataHub. You can think of the DataHub as a collection of favorite datasets in the context of either an organization or a project. Now let us see how a dataset can be used for impact measurement. As you remember, we have our strategic model, be it in the form of a visual diagram or in a hierarchical list. Adding a data-driven performance measurement works the same way in both cases. In this example diagram, a causality chain is modeled where an activity on the left influences a target on the right through some intermediary results. Or to put it simple, from cause to effect. We can work on the cause, and this would be where we plan our tasks in the Workplan module. If our planning is correct, we would then expect to see the effects of our work, which is what we measure with our indicator. Now let us see how a dataset can be connected to an indicator. For this, double-click to open the target box and select its first objective from the list. Start the editing of the diagram to be able to add indicators. Now click Add Indicator with Data Source. Here you can simply select a dataset that you want to use for your indicator. Let us select our OneDrive file from before. Depending on the data source, you will be redirected to a dedicated configuration page to select which data exactly you would like to use for your indicator. Remember that we had defined different series. Each of those is now one tab. Click on the tab of the series you want to link to the indicator. If the preview seems fine, click Select and then Confirm. Congratulations, you have now linked up your first indicator with data. Open the newly created indicator from the list. In our case, we have measurements in different geographical areas, namely we counted tigers in parks A and B. Select the relevant scope. This is the data that is used from now on to evaluate the performance of this indicator. Let us now define the success criterion for performance evaluation. This can be done either as a base target criterion or as a hold criterion. In the base target mode, we try to achieve a target value starting from a base value. The performance is thus evaluated as how far we are from reaching the target value. In the hold mode, we try to remain above a certain hold value. The performance is thus 100% if above the hold value and 0 if below. Let us go with the base target mode and define base and target. Base and target are shown as dashed lines in the chart. You can see that once we define the success criterion, the performance of the indicator is calculated, indicated by the fingerprint icon on top. Click on the performance icon to see how the performance evolved over time. The performance is aggregated throughout the entire strategic framework, meaning that when we go back to the objective, its performance corresponds to the average of the performance of its indicators. When we go back to the box, its performance is the average performance of its objectives. Similarly, the performance of the whole diagram is calculated and can be seen in the diagram overview. Also, the performance of any project containing the diagram is evaluated and can be seen in the project overview. Now this works great as long as you have your dataset properly set up. But what if you don't have data yet? If you don't yet have enough data ready but still want to define your indicator, you can use manual assessments to evaluate the performance of an indicator. To do so, go to the objective again and this time click Add Indicator. This creates an indicator for which we can provide manual assessments of its performance. To do so, click Add Assessment. Enter your assessment and click Submit. As you can see, manually assessed indicators are treated the exact same way as data-driven indicators, and the performance is also calculated and bubbled up the hierarchy. If you want to connect a data source later on, you can do so by clicking Connect Data Source. This brings us to the end of this video. We have seen how to import datasets from different data sources into the DataHub. We have also learned how to link an indicator to one of those datasets from the DataHub in order to evaluate the generated impact. Thanks a lot for following and see you in the next video.